A great feeling from Jimmy Lakey. Jimmy Lakey in the morning makes me feel alive. Woke me up this morning, now I'm up and on my way. Oh, 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 yeah, what a great way to start your day, the Lakey way.
Well, Heidi ho, and I don't know why it still starts off so small on that damn screen. It happens every time. Glad to have you here. Lakey is my name, as the choir has sung. Jimmy Lakey. Hola, mi amigos y amigas, Jaime Lagos. That's pretty good, wasn't it? It rolled right off the tongue, but that's about all I could do. Unless you want a burrito, we could do that as well. Good to have you. Tuesday, the 9th day of September, year of our Lord, 2025. So if you got your checkbook out today, you're going to have to go 090925, 9925. There you have it, helping you write your checks. How many checks did you used to write back in the day, and how many checks do you write a year or a month now? That's a question. We didn't have a question of the day, but I'm just curious how many checks. I had to write a check a while back, a couple of weeks ago, and I had to find the checkbook. I'm digging and going, okay, I have a business check. I have several business checkbooks. I have all these things, and I'm like, I got to find it, and I know where they're all at. I just had to kind of sort through them because they're not top of mind. Anyway, if you have to write a check today, 9925. And if you have to write a check, you might want to remember the date, because I'm sure there are very few dates in history anymore that you probably write checks. If you write checks, that's fantastic. I just don't seem to write many checks anymore. Now, I was a long holdout when everybody started, Venmoing and transferring money and doing debit cards only. I was a holdout. I was I'm going to write that. I'm going to pay the bills with a check. And then I said, well, this is dumb. And so I stopped doing that, and boom. How often do you write a check anymore? Do you still write them? Do you even have a checkbook anymore? I was behind somebody at the bank the other day, and he asked for some counter checks or a cashier's check or something. I can overhear the transaction. And they asked for a counter check or a cashier's or something. And they said, would you like some checks? Do you need some new checks for your office? And he says, no, we don't use checks. We just get this, whatever we're getting now, we get that whenever we have to have a check. So anyway, just a random question that kind of pops into my mind as random things do. How often do you write the checks? All right, wherever you're at this morning, glad to have you here. Got a lot of good topics of conversation coming up. I'm going to continue to talk about the death of Iryna Zarutska. President Trump said, hey, you Democrats have some blood on your hands. I said that yesterday about the death of the lady just riding the Charlotte, North Carolina subway light rail train, and boom, stabbed right there in the neck and the head until she was murdered in cold blood by a person that had been arrested 15 times and 12 times had been let out recently with no bail and just kind of going a bunch of merry way. His own lawyer and mother had said he was a danger and threat to society. And yet Soros-appointed district attorneys, Democrat lawyers, Democrat lawmakers, Democrat mayors, Democrat governors across America have empowered these criminals to be let out roam the streets. And the death of Iryna Zarutska, who escaped the terror of Vladimir Putin, but she could not escape the terror of the modern American Democrat out there and their soft on crime policies. Think of that, where the Democrats are so outrageous in their soft on crime policies that you're safer to live in a hellhole of a nation that's being attacked daily by Vladimir Putin than you are to roam the streets of a Democrat-controlled city. That ought to tell you something about the terror and the reign of terror that the American Democrats have wreaked upon America. And hopefully they continue to pay the price at the ballot box. We shall talk about that. Also, we talk about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and the showboating that happened against him in the hallowed halls of the U.S. Senate. It drives me crazy when U.S. senators act pious and pretend that they're experts on everything. We're in a screwed up country when people in Washington, D.C. become healthcare experts. And Hillary Rodham Clinton, if you don't recall, was one time actually appointed by her husband, Willie Jeff Clinton, to come up with new healthcare policies in America. It was dubbed Hillary Care, and it was lampooned, lambasted, and failed as it should have. It was the precursor, though, to what we know as Obamacare. But the fact is, these people aren't doctors. They're not in the medical world. And even these pious doctors that are U.S. senators, one's a Republican from Kansas. There's some Republicans, Democrats, doesn't matter. They're pious doctors who say, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., we disagree with you. Listen, if you were such great doctors going to save the world, wouldn't you still be in private practice? Instead, you've gone off to become like a NASCAR racer getting sponsored by big pharmaceutical companies. You should have patches on your jacket, patches on your suit. If you're really that great of a doctor, why is it that the world that you live in, why aren't you the one leading the way on how to get rid of the infection, the chronic diseases that Americans now suffer from? These doctors out there, and there's a Republican. He's a real jackwagon. I think he's a senator from the state of Kansas. Kansas, you got to do better than that, would you please? This senator from Kansas, just watching some film of him was very pious and honestly disgusting and disgraceful. And, their loyalty, somebody writes Bill Gates on the screen, their loyalty to Bill Gates and his population control and the pharmaceutical companies is disgusting. And Donald Trump is now praising Robert F. Kennedy Jr., says, you know what, at least he's thinking outside of the box. At least he's thinking differently than these jackwagons that have run the medical industry in a cahoots and collusionary relationship with the big pharmaceutical industries. And yet we have chronic illness in America and are one of the most unhealthy countries on the planet. So good for President Trump standing up to defend the honor of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And do you get the sense sometimes the people I talk to, again, really, they may not, I don't know if I agree with him, but it's an interesting conversation, is what I hear. The most criticism I hear from RFK Jr. comes from people inside the Beltway, comes from people in the media. It comes from people that live in the isolated bubble that is a propaganda machine, and they're lords and our betters. For the most part, people I hear say, you know what, let's have that discussion. Why can't we talk about why we have so many chronic diseases and childhood obesity, and why we do have an onset of autism? When you and I grew up, it was a rarity. Most of us had never heard of it. And now it has become a very regular thing. Why is that? Why? We have to answer the question. We can't talk about that. That's conspiracy theory. It's not conspiracy theory to say that all these chronic diseases and ailments have increased. That's not conspiracy theory. Now, if you want to get into the root of the cause, there's some questions you can ask and where it all comes from. But I tell you, I think it's a fair discussion. We should have it. I'm glad President Trump is defending RFK Jr. All right, it's kind of a random question of the day. I didn't mean for it to happen, but we're going to let it happen. Is how often do you write checks? I see some of you responding. Jim says, I write a real paper check 8 to 10 times a year, usually for taxes. All right, so not very often, less than once a month. Stacy says, I write one check a year. I don't really write checks that much. Again, I was a lone holdout. I held out forever. I would still handwrite checks to pay my bills up until a few years ago if I had to pay them. Then I went to auto pay, but I still would enter my checking account for the auto pay. And then finally said, screw it, I have a debit card, don't I? Okay, we'll use that. So I was a holdout on the check thing, but I don't use checks that much. As a matter of fact, up until a couple of years ago, if I was going to donate money to my church doesn't pass a plate. They don't have that time. They have somebody, they stand at the back door. You know where you can put your bucket in. There's just not a weekly appeal for money, but I participate. And up until a couple of years ago, I'd see the person standing by the back door, and I'd make out my check, and I'd deposit it in, and I was still paying the church, giving to the church with a paper check. But now I've gone to automated giving, and it's a little bit easier. I was a holdout. I really was. Dave says 99% of all my customers still pay me with a check. Every once in a while, I'll have a Venmo. You know, in the business world, I think it's maybe a little bit more prominent. When I was in the concert and music world, if it was a larger number, we'd do the wire transfer. Otherwise, I'm in the smoke-filled room behind doing a settlement, approving spreadsheets and ticket sales, and I'm writing a paper check. But haven't been in that world of business for a long time. But maybe it's more prominent in business and personal lives. RJ says we write a couple of checks a month. And you know who I feel sorry for, and I wonder how they recrafted their businesses, is the companies that print the checks. Because everybody in America, that's how you paid. You get the big box of checks in the mail, and you mailed them, and then you have to reorder. And you wonder, Deluxe was one of the big check companies. I'm sure they have other products, but I'm sure checks were the lion's share of the businesses, and they would have different contracts with different banks. So Chase would give you somebody that could order your checks from. I'm sure it's a quite lucrative business. Talk about a business that has had to rethink itself. It's the check printing industry probably had to really rethink itself. All right, you want a fun story? Can I give you a real fun story? I want to get back to the death of Iryna Zarutska. I think it's very important we continue to talk about that. But here's a story of what not to do and how not to behave. You can't make this up, my friends. We go to Canada. If you're a 6-year-old aspiring criminal, don't think your Barbie Jeep is going to be very good slipping around town unnoticed, okay? It's not going to go. The screen says, hello, Barbie, let's go party. In Canada, here's my best news anchor voice. In Canada, a man named Casper Lincoln was arrested after he was caught driving through town last weekend drunk. However, he was driving in a child-sized pink Barbie Jeep, and he was also wearing aviator glasses, and it's possible for safety. There's the photo right there. Again, Casper Lincoln, breaking news, was arrested in Canada, caught driving through town last weekend in a child-sized Barbie Jeep, also wearing aviator glasses, possible maybe for safety reasons, we're not sure. Casper Lincoln claims he was being lazy, and he decided to take the Jeep out on a Slurpee run while a friend was walking alongside of him. He drove mainly on the sidewalks, but he did drive on the side road as well, and that's what got him in trouble. A cop pulled him over. Notice some real violations here going on by Casper. Casper had a suspended license, and yet he was driving a Barbie Jeep. And he also had a blood alcohol level that was above the legal limit. So he was arrested for DUI of the Barbie Jeep. No joke. There's the photo on the screen. He was on the road, and he was prohibited from driving for 90 days. And in addition, it's going to be, he has a suspended license. So he has some real problems. By the way, Casper was not speeding, so he gets the DUI and driving with a suspended license, the Barbie Jeep, but he was not given a speeding ticket because the Barbie Jeep tops out at about 5 miles per hour. So again, take away the keys if you're going to drink too much and your kids have a Barbie Jeep. Make sure you take away the Barbie Jeep keys. That way you don't have access to it if you don't have any self-control. Casper insisted he did not know he was breaking the law. He said he has no problems with the police. He said the arresting officer was nice. When asked what his takeaway was, he says, "Don't drink and drive." Don't drink and drive, even a Barbie Jeep. So don't do that. A man was arrested while driving a pink Barbie Jeep. God bless him. All right, good to have all of you here on the show. Nice to have you, Jimmy Lakey. Tuesday, 9th day of September. Lots of stories to get here. Continuing coverage of Iryna Zarutska. I have a great post that went up by General Mike Flynn yesterday, and it's quite telling. And I think I'm glad people are talking about it. CNN, NBC, a lot of these places are not talking about it, not giving you the coverage of this lady who survived the horrors of war in Ukraine under the attack of Vladimir Putin. And yes, she cannot attack the wave of crime in America by a criminal who's let to walk the streets by soft on crime policies. So we're going to continue to hit that topic because mainstream or legacy news won't do it. And I think it's important that we continue to cover it and continue to talk about it. All right, what else do we want to get to? Got a great guest coming up on the program, Tyler Gray. Also, don't forget, today is Laura Carno Tuesday. Carno joins us every Tuesday on the program. And then we also have Maureen Steele with the American Made Foundation coming on the program. We're going to talk about some of the new vaccination policies that seemingly are coming together in the state of Florida and some of the changes at the CDC. We'll talk about that in just a bit as well. In the meantime, I want to remind you that you can follow along with the show anytime throughout the week. And if you miss the stream part of the show, a lot of folks subscribe to it on the podcast platforms. That's iHeart. Let's see, we got iHeart, you got Podbean, you got Spotify, all the podcast platforms. Just look up Lakey Unleashed. And as soon as the live show is done, it goes up on the podcast version, audio only. And by the end of the day, end of the week, thousands of earballs will hear the show, see the show. And we appreciate you being a part of those thousands of people that do participate. Thank you very, very much. All right, glad to have you here. I want to bring in Tyler Gray, actor, star of SEAL Team, a former Delta Force operator and author of a book called Forged in Chaos, a Warrior's Origin Story. Tyler is in the green room, and I've got to hit the right button here, and we'll bring him out of the green room onto the stage. Tyler, welcome back to the show, sir.
Hi, how are you? Morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. Nice to have you here. I was had the television on the background this morning, and I was just listening to it as I was doing some reading and sorting through my morning email, and I heard them say Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and it reminded me, oh, he's got a new title. I wonder if he gets to have that 2 lines on his resume that he was Secretary of Defense, now he's Secretary of War. Give me your thoughts. You have some background in the military. The change to the name Department of War after a few decades of Department of Defense, good or bad, sir?
Well, look, I mean, let's be honest. It's a name change. So, what does it really mean? Not a huge a deal on one hand. And then on the other hand, I think you could argue it's obviously, because it's a name change, it's obviously symbolic. And I think the intent of it is reinvigorating the warrior ethos in the military. And I would also, quite frankly, argue trying to reinvigorate the warrior ethos of this country, which has been blatantly and obviously suppressed now for quite a long time. And I think that the change from Department of War to Department of Defense was an example of that. And I think going back really should make us realize what the military is for, and that is for winning wars, quite frankly. And look, as a veteran of 2 wars and someone who was seriously wounded in one, I'm not an advocate for wars, but Trump's kind of mentality of, peace through strength, I think is the only one that we can have in today's world. And so therefore, I do think the symbolic change to the Department of War is a symbol to other countries that, if they mess with us, we're not going to be defensive. We will be offensive if we are forced into that. And that's what I think the intent behind this was.
You go back in time, go back in American history, not actually too long ago, but it was the Department of War. And it seems like it's a parallel track that we would win a war and we would be done with the war as quickly as possible. I was going through recently some of the medals that my grandfather got from World War II. He's now passed away. But I was going through his medals trying to identify what they were. Producer Chad and I were actually looking at them together. And I kind of thought that, I've been thinking about that, of how we fought a war on two different continents, two different fronts, and we were kind of in and out for the most part as far as the combat part of it in 4 years. And yet this generation, my generation, grew up that it took us 20 years in Afghanistan, 20 years after September 11th, and I'm not really sure we accomplished that much over 20 years, except a lot of life, and I guess you can say Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden, 20 years, and I'm not sure we can do it, but we changed the world in 4 years of World War II.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would argue this, and I would say kind of the name change is somewhat symbolic of that. And I'm making a leap here, and I admit that, but let me explain what I mean by that. That 4 years in World War II versus 20 years in Afghanistan is the difference between a war and a limited conflict in quotation marks, right? We never declared war on Afghanistan. We did declare war on Germany, and we did declare war on Japan and actually Italy, which not a lot of people talk about in World War II, but they were part of the axis of evil there. But the point that I'm making is when the military is designed, its only function is to win wars, and when you let it out of its cage and send it on its mission of winning a war, it will do that. And it will do it in a fashion that, in my opinion, no other nation on this earth can do. And yet, when you let it out, when you let the tiger or the lion out of its cage, and yet you've got handcuffs on its feet and or on its four paws, what you're going to have is someone that can bite, maybe if it's close enough, but it's not really going to be able to end the conflict or the fight in a short amount of time. And that's what we've seen over and over again in the U.S. since World War II. I mean, Korean War is an example of this, which is politicians starting a conflict, but because of political reasons, not really wanting to make the conflict a true war. And then you get these prolonged conflicts or quote unquote, what we call forever wars now, that go on forever without any real resolution. And that's kind of my opinion on it.
If you're listening to the program later, you don't see the screen. That's Tyler Gray. He's author of a book called Forged in Chaos, A Warrior's Origin Story. We'll talk more about that here in just a moment, talk about his military career and his experience that caused him to write the book, seriously wounded during a nighttime raid in Sadr City, and 4-year recovery. We can talk about that. That's actually part of the story, Forged in Chaos, A Warrior's Origin Story. There's the old phrase, Tyler, putting lipstick on a pig. Yeah. And you can change the nameplates, and you can say it's the Department of War, not the Department of Defense. And you can try to change the mindset. But we learned under Joe Biden, probably before, we have guys like General Milley. We have guys that are warrior. They're generals, but they're not warrior generals. They're soft bureaucratic leaders in these departments.
Yeah, they're politicians with a general in front of their name. And I think it's very obvious to me, and I think really everyone, that Hegseth is obviously aware of that, and he's going after those. And he's been, since he's been in his position, going after those politician generals and or admirals, whatever service they're a part of, and really trying to get back to, filling the general ranks with more of the patents of the true warriors among the officer ranks. And that's something, again, I agree with completely. I mean, there's generals I've served under, like Stanley McChrystal, who is, was a general, but he was a warrior, or is a warrior, I should say, through and through. And, when I was wounded, by the way, I mean, he was I forget how many stars. He came and visited me in the in Balad, when
Wow.
he heard I got wounded, and I told him, I'm like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Well, I heard one of my guys was wounded." And I just remember thinking, I was like, "That's a leader. That's a leader. That's not a politician." And so I think it's very important to recognize leaders like that and put them in positions of power. The best leaders I've ever seen are people that don't want to be leaders.
Yeah. Let me ask you, the lipstick on a pig. Hopefully, Hegseth and they can root out some of these politicians that wear stripes and uniforms. With that would be fantastic. Hopefully, they have luck doing that. Hegseth says enlistment and enrollment in the media are through the roof, and like they can't contain the crowd anymore. Give me your thoughts on that. People wanting to join the military. You think of after September 11th, which we're coming up on the anniversary of. People wanted to join God and country, go fight for the country and fight the bad guys. This is just a whole bunch of people, namely young men, going, President Trump has inspired me. We haven't been attacked. There's no imminent war, but we're going to go join the military. Talk about what it is that you think is causing this motivation that's causing a flood of enlistments.
Well, first of all, I want to mention something on that note that I really haven't heard anyone talk about. And I think it's very, very, very significant and important and worth talking about. And that is this. So let's go back to prior to President Trump getting into office. You've got this, period, obviously, of 4 years where enlistment is really low, and they're having real problems getting people to join. And if you remember, what was said during that 4-year period of time was, "Oh man, it's Gen Z. These kids don't want to do anything. They hate the country. They don't want to be in the military. They're a lazy generation." All this, smack talking, if you will, on Gen Z, which again, like happens in every generation. It happened, about my generation from the baby boomers and et cetera. And then Trump gets into office, and now we're having this conversation about how enlistment is so, they're turning people, qualified people away because of how many people want to join. And I think the thing that we have to realize is, look, this generation, Gen Z, took a lot of flack, but it had nothing ever to do with them. It had to do with the person or the people in office, how the military was being framed, how it was being perceived at the time, and how, quite frankly, joining the military and saying that, hey, I want to do something for this country, was being, how that message was being received at the time. And so I think now it proves that Gen Z is like any other generation. And, once it's acceptable culturally to join the military, then they'll do so in droves. And that's happening now.
The voice of Tyler Gray. Again, he has a book out called Forged in Chaos, A Warrior's Origin Story. I don't want to give the plot away, but it's in the bio line that you've got injured traumatically, and all of a sudden that injury, your identity and all that you knew was kind of fractured. You walked away without identity, mission, purpose, and that began a series of events of your life, and that's the book called Forged in Chaos, A Warrior's Origin Story. I'll let you unpack it from there.
Yeah, what the book really was, getting out, experiencing all those, different losses, and really over time figuring out what the core issues were. Not, so many people told me I had PTSD from the mental health profession, and it was much more complicated than that. And once I started to realize what the different, puzzle pieces were that I was missing for a certain amount of time, once I found solutions to those things, and then that they worked for me, that's when I knew I had to put those different solutions in a book and put it out there to help others. Hopefully the book could be a light in the dark for those that are in the dark right now, like I was for so many years.
A Warrior's Origin Story, Forged in Chaos. Tyler Gray. Tyler, the book's available everywhere great books are sold. I know you're also online. Where do they find you?
Tyler A. Gray, Gray with an E, pretty much anywhere on social media. And then my website is Tyler A. Gray, graywithane.com.
Tyler, always a pleasure. Again, thank you for your service and sharing your story here on the program, and your expertise and your insight. And also thanks for the book. And I hope people get a copy of it. And it's called Forged in Chaos, tyleragray.com. You can just look up the Gray is with an E, by the way, R-E-Y. So Gray. Tyler, great. All right, good to have all of you here on the program. We have a random question of the day that has begun to circulate and percolate. A lot of you are responding. How many of you ever write checks anymore? Anybody write a check? When was the last time you used a check? I see some comments have been coming in, even while I was talking to Tyler Gray. Lisa says, I have one bill I pay per month that doesn't have online or auto pay. So one time a month, I write a check. Yeah, the deluxe company's out of business if they're depending on Lisa. Dennis says, we maybe write 4 or 5 checks a year at most, all for our small business transaction. And then I see another one came in from, I believe, Rich says, not at all. I use cash or debit cards and auto pay, but cash is king for me most of the time. Now, I was probably even a couple of years ago still writing more checks because I was a holdout on the auto pay and the electronic transfers. I was a real holdout on all that stuff. I didn't like him. Didn't like doing all that stuff, but I've given in, and I do a lot of auto pay and debits and drafts. And again, if I write 1 check a month, it's probably unusual. Maybe a 1 check a year. I was a holdout on it up until a couple of years ago. But Cody says, I think I wrote a check. I think I wrote one 2 years ago. Yeah, I was in Africa one time, and I remember taking classes in school where you had to learn how to fill out a check. You had to know how to carry the line and zero zeros or XX and over 100 how many cents you have, and had to write it out. I remember all that, learning it, because as if checks were going to be the ever big part of your life. That was a big boy thing. You had to learn that like a home economics class. I remember that, and I remember being I was out of town. I don't know if I was in Africa. I don't know where I was at. And my son was back at home for my business my office, I needed him to write a check. Somebody was requesting a check. And I said, I'm overseas. And I said, I'll just have my son do it. And I remember coaching him on how to write a check from afar. I said, no, write the name, pay to the order of, and I had to help him. And I said, you got to write out 104,000 or whatever it was. Whatever it was. And I had to coach him because I'm like, why, you didn't learn this in school? He goes, Dad, why would I learn this in school? And I said, that's true. Why would you learn this in school? You probably will never own a checkbook in your life. Anyway, do you still write checks? When do you write them? And when did you stop? When did you give up checks for debit cards or what have you? All right, good to have you here on the show. Jimmy is my name. Don't forget the name, Iryna Zarutska. She, unfortunately, is a Ukrainian immigrant that could survive war based in the hell brought to her by Vladimir Putin and the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but she could not survive the crime policies of today's American Democrat Party. Iryna Zarutska, and the Democrats have her blood on their hands. Iryna Zarutska. Iryna Zarutska, a name that, Chris Matthews, who are these clowns that have television shows? He's still on? Jake Tapper, he's still on, right? I don't even know who's on anymore. All these jackwagons from CNN. Iryna Zarutska, the blood is on the hands of the modern Democrat Party, in my humble opinion. She could survive the onslaught of Vladimir Putin, but not the pro-crime policies of American Democrat states and cities. I bring into the conversation the esteemed Laura Carno. She used to be named, she was of LauraCarno.com fame, but now I say she's of FasterColorado.com fame. Laura Carno in the studio. Here she is. Welcome to the stage. Applause, please. Boom. How are you, Laura?
Good. And I'm just going to say fastercolorado.org.
FasterColorado.org.
Yes, we are an org now.
You are an org. Well,
we are an org.
It's the nicest thing I've been called for a while is an org. I've been called a lot of other things. Let me ask you, do you write checks much, Laura Carno? You don't seem like the check writing type.
I mean, here and there. I'm trying to remember when the last time I wrote one was outside of Faster, because we do pay the ranges when we rent range space, and we pay our instructors with checks. But personally, I'm just trying to remember the last time. But what I can tell you, Jimmy, is that the people who write checks at least know how to do it in cursive.
Yeah, they can at least read cursive. Have you tried to write in cursive lately? I tried, and it looked like it didn't look pretty. It looked like I might be on meth or something because I've lost practice. You said to practice that in 3rd grade.
Yeah, and so when I take notes, it's in cursive just because it's fast. So I've never lost my cursive. But yeah, talking to the grandkids and stuff, they're like, "What is that?"
I'm,
What language is
I,
that, Nona?
I'm writing in Greek. Thank you. I'm
Yeah,
very
exactly.
trilingual. I'm thinking of checks. I do write some for Rivers Promise. We'll get the bill from the golf course. That usually takes a few days for them to get all the accounting. They'll send us a bill. And I usually, because it's such a large number, it causes all the banks to freak out. Why are they
Right.
charging a credit card that much money? So I'll do a check, or sometimes I'll just go get a counter check or ACH for that amount. But once or twice a year through the charity, I'll write a check out. But they're few and far between, Laura. A dying breed of even knows what a checkbook is.
Yes. Also, stick shift is
Yeah.
another way to keep the youngsters from stealing your car.
Yeah, it's been so long since I drove a stick shift. It might keep me from stealing your car as well.
I think I don't have a manual transmission car, but I think it's like riding a bike. You get in and you like your body just knows how to do it without thinking.
They
But
said
the
that about
youngsters,
cursive as well. They said that about cursive, and again, it looks like I'm on meth when I try to write in cursive.
maybe
now.
your cursive was never good, Jimmy.
If I really think about it, I can do cursive and I write just like an old woman, like one of my old lady teachers. I'm so proper. Some people had this like real cool cursive, and me, I'm like by the book. My L looks like it's on the strip above the chalkboard.
Oh, nice.
I do that kind of stuff. So it was great because I could always forge my mom's name when I needed to write a note.
Nice.
I could always do that. All right, Laura Carno, my guest on this Tuesday morning. Feels like a Thursday for me for some reason. Tuesday morning, the 9th day of September, year of our Lord 2025. All this check talk started when I said if you're writing a check today, it's 9925, and I mean that. That's still good information if you're writing a check today. All right, Laura, I want to come back to the name Iryna Zarutska, the Ukrainian immigrant that survived the horrors of war. Brought by Vladimir Putin, but she could not survive the soft on crime policies that come from Democrat legislators, Democrat city councils. And we think about North Carolina, how horrible this is. This is not the only place where you have an Iryna Zarutska or being killed or other people being harmed by a repeat offender that keeps getting out of jail.
Right. And it's a horrible story and a horrible situation. I don't know if you've seen, Jimmy, any of the news stories that have the lineup of all of his mugshots. I don't know, 15 of them or something like that.
15.
And you're like, okay, do you see the problem here? Just in one picture, do you see the problem? But he kept getting let out. His mom was saying, hey, he's got some mental stuff going on, and either had him committed or tried to have him committed. I saw two different stories that treated that differently. But mom was even saying, hey, my boy there's something not right. And here in Colorado, we have a law that says if you are mentally ill and incompetent to stand trial is the key word, incompetent to stand trial, they need to let you out. And if you don't qualify to get a bed in a mental health facility, then you get let out. There's two stories that the first one went national. This super scary looking guy, one of the scariest looking dudes I've ever seen. He's like all messed up on whatever he was on. He went to a schoolyard and tried to steal a child, and gets arrested and gets let out again. But there's this one, and folks can find it on any of the Denver TV stations. I saw it on CBS. Sheriff Steve Reams from Weld County gets on TV and he says, hey, there's this law. I can't do anything about this guy who we're being forced to let out because of this law, because he doesn't qualify under any of the mental health stuff to have a bed in a mental health facility, but he is incompetent to stand trial. I have no choice. And Steve Reams, you know Steve as well as I do, he is law and order as they come, tough on crime as they come. And he has no legal ability to keep this dude locked up. And they've got the videos of what the guy did. He look at Sheriff Steve Reams is commenting on this. How nice. That house bill needs to go to the dumpster. It is a dumpster fire, and we should put it in a dumpster and set it on fire. It's so bad. But this could be this Iryna situation before Iryna happened. That there's a guy, and I got all distracted from Sheriff Reams comment there, but they showed the video on the news station of what the crime was, and they had to have a disclaimer saying this is disturbing, and it is. The guy is beating people up, knocks somebody on the ground, hits his head, knocks the guy out, and keeps pummeling the guy. I mean, you can kill somebody
Yeah.
doing that, Jimmy, and he's very dangerous. And so Sheriff Reams has no other choice other than to go on the news and say, "Hey guys, this guy's out on the street. You're on your own. Take care of things." And thank goodness he's a sheriff that believes in concealed carry among his citizens. So.
Yeah, when you were talking, I'll reach out to Sheriff Reams, see if he'll come on the program tomorrow, Thursday, when he has some time and talk about this. I know it's lingering, and I know they're fighting it, trying to keep this guy in the Weld County Jail, but the state law signed by Jared Polis and a merry band of radical Democrats, they forced a hand to let a dangerous criminal with some dangerous allegations back on the street. And I guess the moral of the story is that this jackwagon in North Carolina can be roaming the streets after 15 arrests and finally commit a murder. At which point does that type of crime hit the great state of Colorado? You could argue maybe it already has. You have DUI deaths and other things by people that should have been in jail. And so while we look at North Carolina and shake our head and go, wow, I can't believe that happened in North Carolina, you might want to look in your own backyard because it's happening right here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And in North Carolina, the mayor isn't talking about it.
Uh-oh, Laura's connection went crazy there.
Yeah, your voice went crazy too. I thought it was.
Let me pull her. Am I okay, producer Chad? Is that a Laura thing or a me thing? Let producer Chad, he'll give me an alert here. Laura, let's bring you back in, see if we're better. Nope, I can't hear. Laura's gone crazy on us. We have an audio issue, and I'm not sure if it's on her end or my end. Producer Chad is chiming in here. I'm good, Laura. It's you, Laura. If you can back out and come back in, we'll see if Laura can back out and come back in. So, Laura, go out and come back in. Producer Chad says you're good, Jimmy. That's the cue coming in from off stage. Anyway, good to have all of you here. I do mean that, though, if you're watching the North Carolina stuff and going, how the heck did these judges let this guy out so often? How'd they let the fella out? They let him out because of bad policy, and we have some of the same very policies right here in the state of Colorado. All right, we see we have Laura Carno back. I think we had a little, the hamster stopped spinning the wheel out of her house, and the internet went bad. There you are. It's loud and clear.
Yay. Okay. All right. So it was my connection because you sounded crazy too. So, but what I was going to say,
I always sound crazy. But it's my show. So
how about this? Your voice sounded crazy too to match you. But the mayor in Charlotte wasn't talking about it. The city council in Charlotte said, "Oh, hey, we're going to have our cake break," and they went away and had cake, and then talked about the death of Iryna on their. Is it a train or light rail?
Light rail.
Light rail. Okay. And so they're not interested in talking about it. It seems like every podcast on the center right is talking about it. And we've got to keep this alive. Some of the lefty journalists are saying, well, we don't want to talk about it because we don't want anybody to look at this in a racial way. Well, you don't have to look at anything in a racial way. You can say, this person here killed somebody, this person here died. People can see for themselves what's going on. It's not necessarily because of the race of that person that they did it. It's not because of their race. It's because they are a criminal, and the criminal justice system is not protecting people like Iryna.
It's not protecting people like Iryna, and ultimately they're not protecting us. And President Trump said this, Democrats, I don't think it's too harsh. You have some blood on your hands. And for all these stories that happen in criminals, so that this guy from Weld County gets out, Jared Polis will have blood on his hand as well. There's no other way to say it. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. It's just, these are the consequences of your actions. And unfortunately, people in North Carolina, people in Colorado, people in other states oftentimes reap the benefits of the idiocy that these politicians put into action. Laura, very quickly, President Trump has floated an idea that if you are a trans, you should have a gun ban. He says, hey, there may be some mental health disorder here, so why are we giving you a gun pass? Why are we giving you a right to carry a weapon? Your thoughts on the ban for trans when it comes to guns?
Yeah, everybody has the right to self-defense. Every law-abiding citizen has the right to self-defense. And I will just state that very plainly. If there, and you know, we've talked on this show a lot, Jimmy, that there are some commonalities among some of these most recent school shooters, and that they are young transgender identifying people. Should authorities look into that? Should the investigators look into that? Absolutely. Were they on some medication? Was there some underlying mental condition? All of these things they should look at. But to say, you know, you identify this way, if they are law-abiding citizens, we're not doing that. This is about everybody has the right to protect themselves. And I could say that people in the gay and trans community might be bashed more than people not in the gay and trans community. There's a group called Pink Pistols that is a gun rights group for the LGBT community. And their tagline is "Armed gays don't get bashed." And I'll tell you, from going to gun rights policy conference for years on years, there's a very, very large LGBT and Q community of pro-gun folks. So you can't look at that community and say, oh yeah, they're very liberal. They might be socially liberal in other ways. They might be fiscally liberal in other ways, but they are as serious as you and I are about making sure that we have the right to defend ourselves.
Laura Carno, if you're listening later in the day, her organization's fastercolorado.org, fastercolorado.org. Laura, unrelated to the topic of trans bans and gays and lesbians and all that stuff, one of the most favorite comments that I've ever seen in the chat room has popped up. Obnoxious Scott, who thinks you're one of the smartest women in America, has said, regarding our technical issue we had earlier, he said, never thought I'd say this in my life. Jimmy good, Laura bad.
Scott, he's always on my side, though, so I'm going to let that one go.
Read that again, Laura. Say it, Jimmy good, Laura bad. I just want you to know.
And I will, just to clarify what Scott is saying, Jimmy's connection was good. Laura's connection was bad.
You know, always add more words to it, just like a woman.
I am sweetness and light. Sweetness and light here, Jimmy.
I am adorable and incorrigible, and I own it every stinking minute of it. Thank you very much. All right, Laura, you and I, a couple of weeks from now, we're finally going to get to it. I got past my golf tournament. I think we're going to be able to announce a fun little giveaway on behalf of Faster Colorado. We're working on it. I'm trying to work with you on it, and we're going to help put a luxury VIP Vegas excursion together, and people can win it. But before that, we're still working on that detail. I think I've almost got it ready to go. But Laura, you also like to give away beef. I've got to be careful how I phrase that, because I've got people like Laura out there, or Scott in my audience, that if I say other things that they take it like 13-year-old boys. So let's talk about another sweepstakes, Laura, that you're a part of.
Yeah, so we've done these at Faster Colorado for years, whether they were raffles or sweepstakes, depending on the law. And so we have a brand new, just launched it at 6 a.m. this morning, a brand new sweepstakes. You can win 2 firearms and a side of beef and some ammo and a chance to come to Faster class and all that kind of stuff. So we'll be running this through Halloween is our draw date. So you've got a little bit of time there, and then you and I will save that secret for some future. But we're so grateful that there are these options for people to do something fun and have a chance to win something great, and also to help kids. And you know why this is all important, just like your charity Rivers Promise, which I'm a sponsor of a child in Rwanda. With your charity, we all depend on donations to run these organizations, because the state of Colorado, as far as Faster goes, state of Colorado is not going to say, oh, hey, here's a bunch of money for schools to be able to pay for their training for armed staff. The state of Colorado is not doing that. So we need to go out to the public and say, if we want our children protected by armed security teams out there, those schools need help, especially some of those really small school districts. Sheriff Reams up in Weld County, since he's probably listening, he has made sure to have a school resource officer in every school in his district, in his county. But we also have armed staff in lots of those schools. So, if you've got even if your district has school resource officers, one person armed is not enough in a school to keep kids safe. We've seen that time and again.
Laura, I know that living in the biggest state that you live in, you have to get around like in a golf cart and through the gates and stuff. And so I don't, but I also know that your golf cart, I've heard, looks like a Barbie Jeep, and you sometimes drive around in a Barbie Jeep. Did you hear this story on the screen about the guy in Canada that got a DUI because he decided to make a Slurpee run in a Barbie Jeep?
Yes.
Does that look familiar to anything that you drive around at the Carno estate?
No, no. And by the way, anything pink, I'm just not one of those pink people, so I don't have pink firearms or any of that stuff. It's so I probably, if I had a toy Jeep that was pink, it would have been my granddaughter's.
Yeah.
But we don't have anything like that around here. I would have probably gotten her a camo one.
The left of the Media Matters are going to hear that Laura Carno loves cancer. That's what they're going to hear when you said you don't like the pink. That's what they're going to hear.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure,
pink is symbolic.
Yeah.
You got to.
It's just not my color. It washes me out sometimes.
I understand. Same thing for me. It's not my color. I only wear blue shirts. Well, anyway, the moral of the story, Laura, if you are out and about and you're driving around the Carno estate in your camo Jeep, Barbie Jeep, please, we're asking you, don't take it on the road if you've been drinking too much, because you get in trouble. That guy got in trouble doing that.
Well, the good thing about driving it around on...
Oh, there goes Max Headroom again. She's back. Laura Carno, I'll let you go. FasterColorado.org, FasterColorado.org, FasterColorado.org. Oh, I got to take the wrong button there. FasterColorado.org. All right, got a little mix up there on Laura's technology, but again, let's say what producer Chad put up earlier from Obnoxious Scott. Jimmy Good, Laura Bad. See, that's what I got another chance to say it. Jimmy Good and Laura Bad. All right, change up on the lineup here. I'm just getting some messages popping in. We start with Ann Vandersteel, then Maureen was going to be with us. And we have another substitute. They're calling audibles left and right. And I want to bring into the program here in just a moment my next guest, Joan Quinn Eastman, coming up in just a second, and we'll get all the details of it because it's been switched around twice since I was started the show, so I'm not exactly even sure of what's happening, but I'm a trained professional and I can figure it out. Also, speaking of trained professionals that can figure it out, want to remind you about Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com. One of our great sponsors of the program. Always appreciate Sherry being a part of the show. And listen, I got to tell you this. If you're in the Colorado area where we broadcast from, I-25 corridor, let's say from Denver and Spoken Wheels out to Boulder, up to Fort Collins, out to Greeley, down to Aurora, Parker, Highlands Ranch, Lakewood, Littleton. Listen, if you're in that Denver Metro I-25 stretch, you need to reach out to Sherry Cree if you're thinking of transaction of real estate anytime in the near future. Maybe you know exactly what you want to do. The path is already marked. You just want to get top dollar for your home. Maybe you'd like a little help on the strategy. Maybe you want some help with the timing. It's very important to do the right timing. I mean, you could jump in right now and probably take advantage of interest rates that have not even come down. There are some banks and lenders that are going ahead and locking in, presuming that the interest rates are going to start to come down soon. So you don't want to have to wait too long. Don't wait until, just go talk about it. For 2 or 3 weeks away from a cut, can you go ahead and jump in and get some kind of a pre-approval going? Listen, Sherry can walk you through the process, but Sherry will also be friend enough and an advisor enough to say, hey, you know what? You might want to wait. Maybe you're trying to use this fall window. Maybe you need trying to get a deal done before the holiday season, or maybe you think that's going to be impossible, and she can talk about when you want to list your home next year. Some people wait too late in the spring to list their home, and they're not some of the first on the market when people start looking. So there's some timing, there's some professional advice you need, and Sherry's who I would go to if I have some of those questions. I trust her implicitly on that. She knows the market. Listen, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Don't forget, any transaction, buy, sell, if she'll give a portion of her proceeds to the charity of your choice. And also, don't forget, my friends, is Sherry. You ready for this? She gives a discount in commission to anybody that is a first responder, veteran, military personnel. She'll make sure that she tries to make it as best as possible, experience and affordability for you to get into the home of your dreams and to make those real estate transactions. The website's homeswithsherry.com. You owe it to yourself, at least as you're talking about realtors. You need to have a conversation with Sherry and see how she fits into your future. Homeswithsherry.com. All right, now let's do this. So let's go to my next guest, and we'll kind of catch up on the whirlwind of substitute teachers that are here. I'm sure that they saved the best for last, I'm guessing. Joan Quinn Eastman is in the green room, replacing previous scheduled guest. Joan, how are you?
I am just as breathless as you are, and I've got to tell you, I'm an old radio broadcaster myself. So I know what it's like to be a professional and be put on the spot at the last minute. What's happened is, I don't know if you know about the premiere that was held here in Boston on Sunday night. Well, as a result of the tremendous response of people wanting to view this incredible documentary that is just all out truth bombing right and left, their website carrying the link has crashed. So that both of their websites have been taken down. And they're trying to solve the problem. We're trying to establish whether it was a cyber hack or if it was just a technical glitch. But, you know, there are no coincidences, right?
Yeah. So you are, let's make sure everybody knows who you are. If they're not familiar with the American Made Foundation, you were a part of that, as is Maureen Steele, and who was scheduled to be with us. And you are the director of the American Made Foundation. Help everybody know what the American Made Foundation does. Then let's talk about the movie. And I want to talk about some of the laws that are changing, maybe in the state of Florida, regarding forced vaccinations and the changes of the CDC. But go ahead and give your spiel for the American Made Foundation.
Okay, so I am on the board of the organization, which is phenomenal. It is a nonprofit. It is dedicated to fighting for freedom, truth, and justice. And I told Ann Vandersteel and Maureen Steele about this absolutely abominable story out of Massachusetts several months ago, and they literally jumped on a plane and came up and interviewed all the parties involved and produced this remarkable documentary. I am a co-producer on it. I was with them every step of the way. These two, I call them the twin tornadoes, but forces for good, for sure. But they actually dubbed me a triple tornado. They've added me to the bunch. The three of us together have really been pushing very hard to get this story out there because the truth has been completely censored. People involved in the film that have been sharing it have been saying that Facebook is not letting their posts go out. You click on the link, it won't play. So it's just, you know, you're over target when these things happen. So it's been my absolute honor and pleasure to thoroughly investigate this story in which a father has been completely smeared and railroaded by the media and the corrupt political system. And the mother has been separated from her children for almost 7 months now. Now, she was court ordered to have 12 hours a week visits with her children, who are being fostered with her mother and her sister, who have links to DCF. And they're saying, you should just do what DCF says. Basically, admit that you're guilty when you've done nothing wrong. You've broken no laws. You're asserting your God-given lawful rights as parents. And they're withholding the mother's visits. So every day is agony for these two very devoted parents. They've been a couple for 12 years. They have 5 beautiful children together. This all happened because a doctor wanted to insist that their youngest baby, who was about 7 months at the time, get the vitamin K shot. So I don't know about you, Jimmy. If you look at the black box warning on vitamin K shot, the very first potential side effect is, are you ready for this? Fatality. Why in the world would any parent in their right mind want to inject something that could potentially cause death to their child? It's absurd. And so the question is, why was the doctor pushing it at 7 months? Because shortly after a baby is born, they produce their own vitamin K. They don't need it. The only reason they jab the kids with it when they're first born is in the off chance that the parents get in an accident on their way home. It'll keep the baby from bleeding out. I mean, can you believe that? That's like saying, I can't walk out my door this morning because I live in a suburban area with, I don't even have street lights, that a Mack truck's going to come by and run me down. Seriously. Wow. So, the whole thing makes no sense. And this particular story is being held up as an example for people that if they can take our children, Jimmy, they can take everything. And so I have thoroughly investigated this. I thought I was retired, a retired broadcaster. I keep trying to get out. They keep pulling me back in. The events of the last 5 years has caused me to launch several international stories on a very small conservative publication out of Boston called the Boston Broadside.
Yeah.
And that is where you'll find all the facts of this story. And let me tell you, you will be shocked. You will be in shock and awe, just as the audience was on Sunday night when we did the premiere at Legacy Place in Boston.
It's amazing watching last week RFK Jr. Sitting in front of a Senate panel, had not even a health committee. It was like a finance committee. And they grilled him, and they should have been like NASCAR racers and with patches about which pharmaceutical companies had donated their campaign before they scream at RFK Jr. But RFK Jr., they're arguing that he was firing people from the CDC. And beneath the squeals and the squawks of Pocahontas and her war cries up there, he was basically trying to say, listen, they were keeping the data from me. I fired them because they weren't showing me the data. They weren't giving me the information. I wanted to look at some of the information. They wouldn't give that. The Democrats don't want you to hear that. They don't want anybody questioning, hey, let's at least ask the question why we have these chronic diseases now and we're unhealthy. Let's now at least discuss why autism has increased. Let's at least have a conversation. Let's have a conversation why within hours of birth, you stick a needle in a child, giving them a hepatitis A shot, which basically you're only going to get that if you're a prostitute or doing drugs. Why are we giving that to newborn babies when the mama's already been tested? Suddenly it's like it's sacrilege for RFK to say, aren't these fair questions?
Yep, exactly. And here's the thing. I had to fight to keep my youngest grandchild from getting those shots recently. It was horrible. And yeah, why would they need it? They're poisoning us. They're dumbing down our society. This is this is not a rabbit hole thing. This is not a conspiracy theory. They are trying to reduce the population. The more they dumb us down, the more they poison us, the less capable we are to live the way we're supposed to, realizing our full potential freely in the greatest country in the world. And it's cases like these that need to be, that like the Riveras, the Reunite the Riveras is the hashtag for the story. Reunite the Riveras. If you put that in on X or web search, you'll pull up multiple articles. This story, when we first broke it in April, went national. There was one X account that had 3.5 million hits on it, died suddenly, picked it up, sudden and unexpected, picked it up, InfoWars picked it up, and the list goes on and on and on. Meanwhile, just like Kennedy is fighting against censorship and being blocked every step of the way, we had this premiere at a place called Legacy Place in Boston. And we invited Legacy Media to come and learn the truth from the source, the parents themselves, and the amazing legal team that has assembled to defend them, not only on the criminal level, but also in juvenile court. And they're filing federal lawsuits too. Crickets, absolute crickets. Yeah. Just doesn't fit their narrative. I used to work for the top news radio station in Boston. I went to the news director there and he said, yeah, we can't air a story like this. It just makes people upset. We'll just do breaking news and weather and events in Boston. And we just want to keep everybody happy and pacified. Keep their heads deeply entrenched in the sand, Jimmy.
Yeah.
It's disgraceful.
It is disgraceful, and these people that call themselves newsmen, newswomen, journalists, they can go to hell and pound sand as far as I'm concerned, because they're not.
Don't you believe they're all complicit now, Jimmy? They are all complicit, and they need to be held accountable. I honestly, 5 years ago, when this whole COVID nonsense hit, when I realized what was going on, I posted that I was ashamed to have had a career in mainstream media. Yeah. Ashamed to be part of it. And I was attacked by people I know. And now here it is 5 years later, and it's all being proven to be true.
They're propagandists, they're indoctrinators, they're spokespeople for a cult, and they all should be ashamed, and they should just admit who they are. And you and I will continue to call them out here. Now, interestingly enough, I'm hoping that there's a lot of people outside the news world, outside of the politicians in Beltway, that I talk to. Matter of fact, almost everybody says, hey, that's a fair question RFK Jr. is asking. It seems like Main Street is a little bit more in tune to, why the heck are you giving my kids 70-something vaccinations before they're a certain age? Why? people are opening their eyes to that. Politicians and news reporters don't seem to be as open to that. Are you seeing the same thing, that we're waking up a little bit?
Absolutely. I saw a perfect meme for you, Jimmy. I'll get your information and send it to you. It showed 4 generations. Well, grandma only had 2 shots. A great grandma only had 2 shots. Grandma had 5 shots. Mother had 7 shots. Baby has 80 plus shots.
Yeah.
That's it. Every generation. This is nothing but business to them. They don't care about humanity. They just are looking at the bottom line. Why are corporations in business? To make money. That is their sole purpose, is to make money. They do not take into consideration humanity. And the reason this case is so riveting is because the same thing is true of what we call in Massachusetts, the Department of Children and Families. Child welfare agencies have a different acronym in every state, and they change their names too when they get into trouble, like when a foster child dies or something. But they're all private contractors. They have D&B numbers. They're all in business to make money. They wanted these 5 Rivera children in the system because you can hear the social workers saying, hey, I got to get more kids in the system this month, or I'm not going to make my car payment. Yeah. It's, whenever something is not making sense, as in the case with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., you just have to follow the money. Yeah. That's all you have to do, is follow the money. And then you'll see why these blatantly wrong actions are being taken. It always comes back to the greed factor. And it's really important for people to hear this. It is the love of money, not money itself. Yep. The love of money is the root of all evil. Yep. If you love money more than you love your fellow human being and your children, your offspring, man, you've got problems. Yep. So that's why this case, and I really urge everybody to look into this case, go to bostonbroadside.com. We are the only local, we're actually the only print publication that has shared the deep dive investigative details of this story. And as I mentioned earlier, I thought I was retired. I keep trying to get out. They keep pulling me back in. When I saw this story, there was no way I could turn the other cheek. I saw what mainstream media was doing to this man. They were making him out to be unstable, mentally unfit, crazy. They're trying to blow up nonsense from minor incidences from 5 and 9 years ago, and saying that he's got a history of abuse. It is the biggest smear job I've ever seen on a really devoted father whose heart is breaking every day being away from his 5 children. And then the same thing in the courts. He's being railroaded in the courts. He was held in Texas for $250 million to $2.5 million. Each parent they were saying you needed $2.5 million to get out of jail in Texas to defend yourself. And then they got back to Massachusetts and they held his bail at $20,000. People had to scurry around to raise that money to get this poor man out so he could defend himself and his family. It's outrageous what has happened to him. And American Made is jumping in with both feet, and they are holding everyone accountable. Another division of theirs is the Department of Government Accountability. So they want to hold every individual that was involved in this totally unlawful and damaging action that has caused so much harm to this family. They want to hold each and every one of them accountable.
Joan Eastman is my guest here, and she's with the American Made Foundation, serves on the board of the great organization as well. You mentioned the documentary that came out about this family and this couple that was arrested. Their children were actually kidnapped, in my opinion, after refusing to get that certain vaccine for their kids, with the #1 warning label said your kid could die. They said, okay, maybe we don't need that one. Let's skip it. You had to debut at the Legacy Place Theater in Boston this past Sunday, and I know that that's obviously not the only time you're going to let this video or this documentary be seen. What's the future of the documentary, and how can viewers and listeners of this show, this podcast, where thousands of ear holes will hear this show by the end of the day, how can folks access this?
Well, good news. Now that the premiere has happened, it has been made available online. It will also be appearing in Florida at a film festival there, and in New Hampshire in October. And it's going to be submitted for a New England Regional Emmy up here. So we'll be giving you more information about all of those events soon. But in the meantime, and this is what I mentioned at the beginning of the show, they were so thrown off when they got up this morning to find that their website was down because, of course, the movie was streaming through the website and thousands of people were watching it and viewing it and downloading it. And then who knows what happened. But the website for AmericanMadeFoundation.org is the place to keep checking back. It should be back up shortly. In the meantime, you can see it on Rumble, on Steel News, Ann Vandersteel's Steel News. Just go there on Rumble, search Ann Vandersteel. It's on Ann Vandersteel's Steel News on Rumble, so you can view the entire thing there. It's less than an hour. And let me tell you, buckle your seatbelts for this one, because you're going to be shocked at what you see. It's incredible that these agencies and this judicial system has gotten away with what they've gotten away with. And we're saying no more.
If you're on the Rumble feed this morning for us, you can go ahead and like Steel News, and we'll link it up, AmericanMadeFoundation.org, when that website's back up again. Probably a little cyber attack. You never know what they do. They shut you out of your social media. If you talk about, I called him the Dr. Fauci. Only way I could get past the algorithms during COVID is I had to name everything. So the virus became the booger cootie virus. And so I called it the book, because you don't want boogers or cooties on your hands. So you got to be careful. And then I could talk about Dr. Fauci as long as I called him the little effer. And I think you know what I mean by that, the little effer. Yeah. And then Dr. Scarf was, Dr. Birx was Dr. Scarf. And I was locked out of my Twitter, locked out of things for weeks until I finally got back in. And then as long as I use code names, but that's the sad part, Joan, is it's like we're living in South Korea. Or North Korea, you have to have a name for the commander. And then once they kill a few people and they find out what the name is, you had to change names. I still call them the little effer and Dr. Scarf, and the tyrants that both of them were, malfeasance and malpractice that they did with medical advice. But that's how I got past the censors, is I had to change their names like we lived in some banana republic, third world country with a dictator.
Yeah, we had to do the same thing here. Some people were calling them carrots, and of course, everybody called them jabs. And then they would put up shots with an asterisk over the O. Yeah, we feel you. But hey, I know that you were disappointed Maureen wasn't able to join you this morning, but she wrote a fabulous article. And if you have not seen Maureen Steele's writing, you have got to check this out. This woman is a force of nature, not only in getting things done and taking action, but the way she writes is so powerful. And I was very impressed to hear how informed you are about what's happening up here in Massachusetts with Pocahontas and all the various players and our commie governor. And she wrote an article that's entitled "Massachusetts Has Gone Full Commie." And she holds this case up as an example. Please look for it. Maureen Steele, you can find her on X at Maureen Steele _. You can find her on social media, also as on Facebook as Maureen Steele. Read her articles. You will be blown away. We can no longer sit idle. I mean, everybody just wants to be happy and feel good. And that is our natural state. But we're going to have to right these wrongs to get there again. We cannot sit idle and let these injustices keep happening over and over and over again. And I am so grateful to American Made Foundation. Really encourage people to support their work. What they're doing is phenomenal.
The name of the documentary is Taken, and we've talked about it before with Maureen and Ann and now Joan. Taken, state-sanctioned kidnapping. And again, the website has been probably hacked a little bit this morning, but you can look for it, American Made Foundation. You can find it on Steel News on the Rumble feed. And if you haven't watched it, we'll have it back on. You need to watch it. The debut and the premiere was this past Sunday, and now it's available online. It's about state-sanctioned kidnapping. One more quick question for you, Joan. We talk about awareness. I'm happy to see that Ron DeSantis down in Florida is saying, you know what, why are we forcing any parent to give any vaccine? It should be all parental choice with informed information given to the parents. Real quick, your thoughts on Ron DeSantis saying, hey, let's get back to it's your body, your choice, your children, your choice, and let's stop giving these forced vaccine mandates.
Jimmy, it is the most fundamental of fundamental God-given rights for us to choose not only what goes into our bodies, but into the bodies of our offspring. They are our property. They cannot be touched by government. Ron DeSantis is an amazing hero, in my opinion, for so many things, especially this, because it's a non sequitur. It's a no-brainer. We have the right. Nobody has the right to infringe or separate. We have unalienable God-given rights. And we had a recent ruling here in Massachusetts, which was unfortunately a day late and a dollar short for the Rivera family. And that is the Mass Family Institute, Michael King, the president of this organization that upholds the best American values that make our country great, is actually featured in the film. And he describes how they wrote an amicus brief that was taken into consideration by the judge, who actually the judge said, I agree more with the argument presented in this amicus brief than I do with the lawyer. So I'm going to rule in favor in making it against the law. Now, this is very important for DCF or any state agency to vaccinate.
Oh, we just lost Joan. But that's interesting, isn't it? It's always interesting. She's talking about the big pharmas, and we just lost her. Yeah. Anyway, everybody go check it out. Rumble, if you're watching the feeds, I don't know if it goes out on all of them. I know Scott's over on Rumble, and he has just put up the Rumble feed, and it's in there. And again, the documentary is called Taken, usually the American Made Foundation, and Joan Quinn Eastman with American Made was our guest, and she cut out mid-speech. But I think you get the idea there. Joan, I'm not sure what happened. Not sure if you can still hear me, but be safe out there, because when you start messing with the big pharmas, they get very, very, very nervous. I appreciate Joan coming on the program. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that just about concludes our show today, as we've had some technical glitch there with Joan. So we'll kind of start wrapping it up and get ready for the stolen memes section of the show. If you're new to the program, that's just where we shamelessly go around the globe and we just steal things. We steal memes, and we let them out there to tell the story and to illustrate absurdity. Joan's flashing back in the green room. We'll see if we get her one more time and say at least goodbye. Joan, you disappeared. I was afraid the little effer showed up and banged your door down. Oh, now I can't hear you, but I think we got technical problems. Cannot hear Joan Quinn Eastman. So, Joan, I can't hear you. You're all locked up. Dr. Scarf, I'm going to let you go. Bye-bye. Everybody wave bye to Joan. Wave bye-bye. There she goes. We'll get her back on when the connection works out. Yeah, everybody just blame the little effer. Blame the little effort. All right, ladies and gentlemen, time for the stolen memes section of the show. And again, shamelessly, producer Chad and I admit we're too lazy to produce our own memes and maybe not even that creative. And so we steal from around the globe. And here you go. You ready? Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from. No one knows. How many waved, actually? I've had a lot of you actually waved at Joan right there. That ties right in. Producer Chad, right there on the theme. When liberals are protesting the RFK Jr., they're saying this is what they look like. This is what those Senate people look like the other day. More autism, processed food, save lives. Jab the children. That's what the libtards out there are for in their love for Big Pharma and the big pharmaceuticals. So if you're a libtard out there and you hate RFK Jr., just go ahead and carry your sign just like that and let us know exactly who it is that you support and what you stand for, because that would be what you stand for. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from. No one knows. Little boy standing in the silhouette shadow with his father, hand in hand. Daddy, what's it like to be a man? I just made the voice up. I don't know, son. We're liberals, and I told you to call me mom. Daddy, what's it like to be a man? I don't know, son. And you won't either. We already had it chopped off of you because we're virtue signaling to our friends. They call me mama. That's scary, but hey, that's today's Democrat Party, isn't it? Anybody going to deny that? Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from. No one knows. NFL fires officiating crew that allowed the Chiefs to lose the season opener. I was a Chargers fan. I always have been a kind of a Chargers fan. I like them. The other night, I didn't get to watch the game, but I was cheering for the Chargers silently. And I've had good luck. You should follow me for your pick 'em. I chose the Buffalo Bills on Sunday night. They had a great come-from-behind, great football game on Sunday night. And last night, I was cheering for the Minnesota Vikings, and the Minnesota Vikings pulled out a come-from-behind as well. And I chose both of them. Again, you're welcome. Thank you. If you need advice on who to choose, it will not suck so bad in your choices. I'm your guy. Your guy. I'm an expert. I know all there is to know about that stuff. I'm right most of the time. On most things. Just ask anybody who I tell them that I'm right. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, nobody knows. This is actually true. There's Donald Trump shaking the hand of Ronald Wilson Reagan. And when this photo was taken, Chuck and Nancy were still blaming Reagan. They were in Congress blaming Reagan. That's true. Chuck and Nancy have been blaming Republicans for problems they caused for a heck of a long time. You know, the consistent problem is those battle axes and jack wagons in Congress still. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, nobody knows. This chef on TV just said, where's the fat? Where there's fat, there's flavor. I know he meant food, but I took it as a compliment. You know, I'm trying to lose weight. I'm working on it. The problem is I like a libation with my cigars. And libations, I don't care what they say, your body processes them less. You have to have fewer libations, and they're very high caloric intake, and your body processes that first before processing. I'm telling you. Jeff says, I don't think you can say come from behind when referring to the Vikings. This is the same Jeff, I think, that's obsessed with the Pringles moment we had a few weeks ago on the show. Yeah, leave it for Jeff. He's got his mind out in the gutter on the YouTube. I like J.J. McCarthy. See, I like, there are certain quarterbacks I really like. I like J.J. McCarthy, plays now for the Vikings. I did play for Michigan, and he hurt me last year's rookie year. I'm a big Josh Allen fan at Buffalo, and of course, anybody knows that Joe Burrow is my quarterback. I like Joe Burrow, partially because he has frosted tips at times of the head, and back in the day, I frosted my tips back in high school as well. But it was a big deal. As a matter of fact, I was announcing a high school football game. Funny story. We'll do memes. And I looked down at the booth, and I'm there behind the microphone saying, welcome to the football game. And I'm doing the big announcer voice. And I looked down, and all these kids showed up, like freshmen and sophomores in high school, and they have the frosted little hair things. And I said, well, it looks like frosted tips are back in style. And some of the teachers up there said, yeah, we thought that one would never come back, and it did. So it's a big deal. I don't know what that has to do with anything except let's continue. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Oh, this is so true. I said this to producer Chad. I think I did. I'm going to claim it. The child has a reaction from a bee sting. Pediatrician says, hey, you should avoid bees. A child has a reaction from peanuts. Pediatrician says, don't eat the nuts. Child has a reaction from an antibiotic. They say, don't use that again. Child has a reaction from a vaccine. The pediatrician says, it's just coincidence. And here's your child's next dose. You cannot refute that that's true. Absolutely cannot refute that that's true. The reason I woke up when it came to the booger cootie virus and other types of shots and jabs they want to give you is because of my own son's horrible experience with the vaccine. And I said, what the heck happened? That never happened. And I realized, I got 3 or 4. 5, and what they were trying to do to him. And even after I told doctors when we got back into America, hey, this is what happened, they're like, oh, that's no problem. That's a coincidence. We got a whole cocktail here to give him. And at that point, that doctor should be throat punched. He should lose his medical license because he's a shill or she's a shill for the pharmaceutical corporations. And you need to recognize that a lot of pediatricians out there are simply shills for the pharmaceuticals. A lot of doctors are. They don't care about the black warning on the box. They just don't care about it. They're shills because what they don't tell you is how much money they make. That if they have a fully jabbed up population of children, the companies will give them bonus money for everyone. They're earning bonuses. It's like their sales quota. And the same thing happened on the booger cootie virus jab that came from Operation Warp Speed. Doctors were surviving. Their practices were thriving because they were getting dollars based on how many jabs they could get in the arms of people. And so it is a true story. And for RFK Jr. to mention it and everybody else to say, he's crazy. Yeah, you told us for years that the Health and Human Service Secretary lady was a woman. And it was a big-ass man dressed up as a cross-dressing fool. Round and round the globe I go, where I steal the memes from. No one knows me. Hey, Alexa, remind me to go to the gym. Alexa, I've added Jen to your shopping list. Close enough. Is Alexa as bad as Siri? Because I can tell Siri to do stuff, and Siri just sucks at it as well. But if you're adding Jen to the shopping list, please, and do some lime and some soda. Appreciate that. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from. No one knows. Ladies and gentlemen, that means we have milked the meme machine dry. And for that matter, the show's got to end. I want to remind you to give to our charity, riverspromise.org. This past Sunday, past Friday, I should say, was our largest fundraiser of the year. And the preliminary counts of our fundraising efforts for Rivers Promise at our annual golf tournament is it was a record-setting year. I wouldn't say we smashed records, but I believe on all accounts that again, all the tallies aren't in yet. And I know some checks are in the mail and some people give it this time of year through their donor advised funds. And those actually come in actual checks as well. But it looks like it was a fantastic day of fundraising and we needed it to be. I wanted it to be. And I hope that you participate. I know so many of you did, and I'm going to get thank you notes out to a lot of you that I can recognize from the show, and I'll say thank you for that. But let me tell you, if you did not contribute Friday at the tournament and you want to contribute, when I ask you to give to the charity riverspromise.org on this program, or ask you to play golf or what have you, I'm not talking about money. I really am not. Money helps us do stuff, but what I'm trying to do is say that money saves a child from a horrid existence. I cannot tell you the first time I actually, I remember where I was at, I read a note from a sponsored child saying, thank you, I finished school, and because of you, I did not have to become a prostitute. And most of my friends became prostitutes when they were 12 or 13. In other words, that the only way they could eat that day was to sell some kind of a favor to somebody. And when we talk about coming to play golf, when I asked you to come play golf, when you played golf, you weren't playing golf. You were saving your girl from prostitution. I'm not being hyperbolic. That is actual true stuff. When you sponsored a child, you're making sure that child had access to education and nutrition, and you're making sure that child lives to a healthy age with free of disease because they have the right nutrition. So when I talk about golf, when I talk about donations, I'm not talking about dollars. I'm not talking about pennies. I'm not talking about whether you write a check or do it digitally. I'm saying that when you give, it's not about the golf. It's not about the casino night. It's not about the fundraising drive. It's about the life-changing hope that we're offering, hope for children. That's what we do. So if you did not participate, we're still tallying up our golf tournament event. And if you'd like to continue from afar, even though you couldn't be there Friday, to make a donation, large or small, I appreciate that. And thank you very much for all of your activity regarding that. If you'd like to give, go to riverspromise.org. There is a donation page for your debit card or for your credit card. I think you can also do an ACH or a check donation on there. But if you prefer, as we talked about earlier, to write the old-fashioned donation check, which you'd be surprised, fewer and fewer do, but we still have some that do. And I appreciate that. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We're expecting some, a lot of people do auto pay on the banks and stuff. Anyway, whatever you do, all the addresses at riverspromise.org, and you can, our EIN numbers there if you will need to have that for a giving account, but it's all there. riverspromise.org, and anything that arrives in the next couple of days will still count towards that golf tournament tally. But thank you. And again, remember, anytime I mention sponsoring a child, anytime I mention donations, anytime I invite you to a golf tournament, we're really not talking about golf. We're talking about saving a kid's life. And that's how amazing it is what we get to do, and just be a part of it. And God lets us do it. So he called us to do it, and that's what I'm doing. And appreciate all your partnership in doing so. All right, I got to go. I'm over time. I thought we were going to get out of time today, but we had such great guests. A couple of technical difficulties, but we made it through. And if you go like and subscribe us on all the social media, what are they called? The podcast platforms. If you're on social media, facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey. I'm on the X under the same name, Jimmy Lakey. Instagram, Jimmy Lakey. Thanks to Media Equalizer, Red Wave America, Rumble, good morning. YouTube, good morning. Hello, we're coming out to Spotify right now. Spotify, stay. It's going to be great. iTunes is iHeartRadio. Yeah, we're back on iHeart. Yeah, they can't keep me away. I'm a hit for them. Love you. God bless you. God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of here. There you go. Run along. Get off my...